Break is this remarkable award-winning RPG that I covered on this channel that has a ton of different things going for it, but it does this one thing that I think maybe every RPG should have as an option. Anytime a game actually has any amount of actual lore to it, there will be players who don't read that lore. Reading up on lore before a game can be seen as a barrier that keeps players away from amazing RPG settings. You want to play Alien or a Star Wars game or The One Ring, but there are centuries of history to learn. Break actually solved this brilliantly with something they call dimensional strays, characters from our modern world who get transplanted into this fantasy or sci-fi realm. This is a whole genre of manga and anime called isekai, or different world. With isekai characters, the player's ignorance about the setting becomes the character's ignorance, and thus they begin their learning experience alongside their PC during the course of play. This simple concept could revolutionize how we approach every RPG setting out there. Let me show you why this isekai option, where you play as someone from our world thrust into the game world, might be a killer accessibility feature. The core problem: the lore barrier. The lore barrier manifests in a few ways that prevent players from engaging with established RPG settings. Groups new to a setting are faced with overwhelming background knowledge requirements. You see an RPG with compelling mechanics and flavor and art, but when you discover pages of world history, political factions, and cultural details that seem prerequisite to play, the barrier to entry feels too high. New players struggle to integrate into established groups where everyone else has extensive setting knowledge. They're constantly asking for clarification on references, feeling lost during conversations about world events, and experiencing a sense of exclusion despite no intentional gatekeeping. GMs end up spending significant session time explaining world details rather than running the actual game. Instead of diving into adventure, the GM becomes a walking encyclopedia, delivering exposition about why certain factions are in conflict or how particular cultural elements work. The isekai solution, why it works. The isekai approach solves the lore barrier by fundamentally reframing player ignorance as a character feature rather than a player deficiency. When your character is also from our modern world, your lack of knowledge about the fantasy setting becomes perfectly appropriate. You don't know how magic works because your character doesn't know how magic works. You're unfamiliar with the political landscape because your character just arrived from a world without those factions. The disconnect between player knowledge and character knowledge disappears entirely. This creates natural opportunities for exposition that feel organic to the story. Instead of the GM delivering information dumps, other characters can explain world characters to your isekai character, and by extension to you. These teaching moments become character interactions rather than setting explanations. The setup provides immediate character motivation without requiring setting knowledge. Your character wants to understand the strange new world they've been thrust into. They may want to find a way home, or they might want to figure out how to survive and thrive in their new environment, and they may take on the mission or quest thrust at them while striving for those other things simultaneously. Most importantly, the approach transforms world building from a front-loaded player responsibility into a gradual discovery process. You learn about the setting at the same pace as your character, building understanding naturally through play rather than through pre-game study. The world reveals itself organically as you explore it, making the learning process part of the entertainment rather than homework. Examples of insertion methods. Let's look at how this concept would work in practice by examining what I would consider the primary methods for getting modern characters into the setting. Scientific accidents and experiments. In Star Wars, your character could be caught in a hyperspace rift during an Earth-based particle accelerator experiment. In Star Trek, they might be displaced by temporal anomalies created during quantum research. For fantasy settings like Middle-earth or Pendragon, this could involve experimentation on an ancient archaeological relic gone wrong. But this method works especially well in highly advanced technological settings. Temporal displacement. Time travel scenarios work well for settings with established future or past timelines based on our own timeline. The classic Star Trek setup involves a 21st century human, awakening from cryogenic sleep or being transported through time. In Pendragon, your character travels backward to Arthurian Britain, which is not entirely historical, but it's supposed to be our world. Portal and dimensional rifts. Direct portal transportation offers the most dramatic fish out of water scenarios, and this is the sort of default in the Break RPG. Your character steps through a doorway and emerges in the setting, just like that. How you dress the portal or dimensional rift is up to you, but obviously, its main feature should be that it should not be easy to return home through that portal. Cosmic forces and mystical events. Magical interventions or cosmic events could provide insertion methods that tie directly into the setting's central themes. A force-sensitive disturbance could transport someone to the Star Wars galaxy, immediately connecting them to that setting's mystical elements. Magical portals created by wizards or gods work naturally in fantasy settings, and cosmic phenomena like wormholes can fit certain sci-fi universes. All of these methods will also provide a built-in mystery element as well. Your character doesn't just need to adapt to a new world, they need to understand why they were brought there in the first place. For GMs. GMs running games with isekai characters need to adapt their exposition and world-building techniques to take advantage of this setup. First, use isekai PCs as natural exposition vehicles. Instead of delivering information dumps or assuming everyone knows the political situation, you can provide world details specifically in response to these characters' questions and observations. This makes exposition feel organic and character-driven rather than forced. Create deliberate moments of wonder and confusion that highlight the differences between worlds. When the isekai character encounters magic for the first time, witness alien technology, or observes unfamiliar social customs, lean into their amazement or bewilderment. These reactions help establish the uniqueness of your world while giving other players a fresh perspective on familiar events. Let other PCs teach world knowledge naturally through worldplay. Rather than having NPCs explain everything, encourage native characters to guide and educate the newcomer. This creates bonding opportunities between characters while distributing the exposition load across the party instead of placing it entirely on the GM. For players taking on isekai characters need to approach the game with a specific mindset that maximizes the concept's potential. First, embrace the learning curve as part of your character's journey. Your confusion about world details isn't a bug, it's the core feature of your character concept. Accept that you'll make mistakes, misunderstand situations, and need guidance, because these moments create authentic character development and interesting story beats. Ask questions in character rather than breaking immersion to seek clarification. That's kind of the whole point of this isekai approach. Instead of stopping the game to ask the GM about political factions, have your character ask other party members or NPCs for explanations. This keeps the information gathering process within the fiction. Drive the storyline by pursuing your character's natural curiosity about this new world. Instead of waiting for the GM to feed you information, actively seek out learning opportunities. Your character's desire to understand their new environment can become a driving force for entire adventure arcs. Addressing potential concerns. So I've anticipated a couple of arguments against the isekai approach in established settings, and I want to give you some potential counter-arguments. Isekai breaks immersion. This concern actually misunderstands what creates immersion, and that's genuine wonder and surprise. I think there's a strong potential for isekai characters to enhance immersion by making discovery genuine. When your character encounters something fantastical, your authentic surprise and wonder as a player matches your character's reaction perfectly. This creates emotional investment in learning the world because every revelation feels personally meaningful rather than academically absorbed. It's for lazy players. You're always going to have lazy players, and certainly the isekai approach is meant for players who don't want to do the reading. But just because a player doesn't want to read 50 pages of lore doesn't mean they're not intensely creative, thoughtful, imaginative people. I think that playing an isekai character actually requires some unique skills. It demands adaptation, creativity, and cultural navigation abilities that differ from traditional character concepts. There are distinctive roleplay challenges centered around culture clash, moral conflict, and social integration. What Break discovered with their dimensional strays isn't just a clever character option, it's a design philosophy that could transform how we approach tabletop gaming accessibility. By letting player ignorance become character ignorance, they've turned the biggest barrier to entry into the foundation of the character concept itself. Think about all the settings that you want to run as a GM, but which you couldn't find a group to play with because of the intimidating amount of lore that has accumulated for that setting. Imagine if you could finally just jump right in. This isn't about dumbing down rich settings or catering to lazy players. It's about recognizing that the wonder of exploring unknown worlds, really the core underlying fantasy that draws us to these games in the first place, shouldn't necessarily require homework to experience. The solution has been hiding in plain sight in anime and fantasy literature for decades. Maybe it's time RPGs embraced it too. I'd like to know what settings you think would work best with an isekai option, and if you're a GM, if you've ever tried this approach before. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and thanks as always for watching. I'll see you.